workshop of peace in these troubled times. First of all, I'd like to give the floor to the Syrian Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch and all of the East, His Holiness Ignatius Aphrem II. Our prayers are joined by yours to our dear friend Margaret Ibrahim, whom you worked with. He was a person who took part in many of our meetings. And like Paul Yaziji of the Greek Orthodox Church, these two bishops were abducted in Aleppo over a year ago, and we pray every day for their liberation. Your Holiness, you have the floor.
Distinguished audience, Professor Andrea Riccardi, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to thank the community of Sant'Egidio for inviting us to this conference. This is indeed an opportune time to hold such a conference dealing with the issues of peace and the future. Today, our world is witnessing tremendous challenges, and our humanity is devastated with many wars and conflicts. Our gathering here in the city of Antwerp is but a reminder to all of us that not much has changed in our human experience. It was in 1914, exactly a century ago, that this beautiful city was under siege as part of the clash of nations over the control of the resources of our earth. Therefore, the quest for real peace becomes the most pressing priority, which should be understood by all. I bring you greetings of millions of Christians and non-Christians in the Middle East. The voices of Sunnis that are killed by Sunnis, Shia that are targeted by Islamic fanatics, Christians and Yazidis that were expelled from their homes and towns, children that have lost their parents, and millions of people who desire to live in peace with each other. But international politics and religious fanaticism prevent them from doing so. The gravity of the events that are taking place in the world in general, and in the Middle East in particular, is beyond all which we have seen or heard of in the past. History is not even equipped with the appropriate terminology to accurately describe what we are witnessing. The aspirations of the peoples of the Middle East to live in peace and prosperity have been shattered. The smaller religious communities are especially affected by these tragic events. What kind of future awaits these communities? How can young people fulfill their dreams? Will there be any future for them in their own homeland? Peace is the future. Without peace, there will be no future for our humanity. Without peace, humanity is in misery, and it will collapse under the heavy weight of massacres and genocides. Peace creates harmony between different races and proves the possibility of life in mutual understanding and despite all differences. While peace is a requirement for a free life, for Christians, it's a way of life. Christ is the Prince of Peace, who calls the peacemakers as being the children of God. Moreover, for Christians, true peace is that which is given by our Lord Jesus Christ. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. The peace of Christ is given to us in the midst of turmoil and chaos. It's a peace that cannot be taken away from us. It's the everlasting peace everyone is searching for. The real challenge is to relay this concept of peace to a family living in the middle of a war zone. In so doing, you will come to realize how this divine peace is foreign to this world. Very few are those who, totally submitting to God's will and simply believing that the Lord is a source of peace in our troubled world, will be able to fully grasp and accept this. Allow us to share with you some of what we have observed during our recent visits to our suffering people in different countries in the Middle East. It will give you an authentic picture of the conditions under which Christians and others are living now. It remains up to you to imagine what peace means for these people. We visited twice our people in Iraq who are suffering from persecution and expulsion. The first time we went to northern Iraq from June 13 to 16 of this year and visited the more than 15,000 people who were expelled from their homes in the city of Mosul by ISIS Daesh. They took refuge in the towns and villages of the Nineveh Plain, thinking that they are in safety. And then our second visit took place on August 20th to 25th of this year, together with a delegation of the Patriarchs of the East. We visited these same individuals who were expelled for the second time in a few weeks. This time, with them, there were more than 120,000 Christians and many other minorities were all driven away from their homes in the towns and villages of the Nineveh Plains into the region of Kurdistan. During that visit, we arrived in the village of Aradan, a Christian village, where some 50 families have taken refuge in the local church. While meeting with these people in the church hall, a 3-year-old child approaches me with his twin brother. He widely opens his eyes and his arms and instantly says in Syriac Aramaic, "Leitlan Duktha, Leitlan Duktha." We have no place, we have no space. They were living with more than 70 people in this small, tiny church hall. They did not have a place in that crowded, small hall. Yet these two boys were luckier than many other children who are still sleeping under tents on the streets and inside unfinished construction sites. During each visit, we have observed that Christians still held hope in the power and the mercy of the Lord. His power that will lead them out of their present misery, and His mercy that will move Him to save them. In each visit, we have spoken to the displaced Christians. We wanted to assure them that it is not too late, that there is still hope to find a solution. We have addressed the politicians, locally and internationally, asking them to provide these people with international protection. We have written to the UN Secretary General, the Security Council members, the European Union, the UN Human Rights Commission. We have also motivated the Lebanese government to report to the International Criminal Court and ask them to investigate these evil acts, which constitute nothing less than crimes against humanity. Peaceful solution for these suffering refugees ought to result in their return to their homes in the Nineveh Plain and the city of Mosul. It should also help them defend themselves against future attacks. The situation in Lebanon is also very worrying. Sectarianism is in control of the political life in the country. Division is established and schism between the different constituents of the Lebanese society is growing beyond manageable. ISIS, Al-Nusra Front, and other terroristic armed groups are having a stronghold on several Lebanese towns and villages. The small town of Arsal, which lies on the Qalamon mountainous region on the Syrian-Lebanese border, continues to present a big challenge to the government of Lebanon. Some 30 Lebanese soldiers are being held hostages by these terrorist groups, and every now and then a soldier would be slain. In Lebanon, unity is most needed. In fact, it is the only element that can bring peace into the complexity of confessional groups. Unity of will to build together the future for the young citizens, to help elect a new president for that country. As the crisis in Syria was unfolding, we came to realize that the war benefited no one, although there were some legitimate calls and need for political reforms. These did not justify at all the barbaric acts of kidnapping, beheading, killing, and destroying everything. Even all trees were uprooted and burned. Monuments were destroyed and statues were beheaded. Syrian people in general became victims of this senseless war. While Christians were not specifically targeted for their religion, they took more than their share of suffering and martyrdom. Sadad is an exclusively Syriac Christian town of about 15,000 inhabitants in the region of Homs. Sadad was attacked by Al-Nusra Front and other groups October of last year. In one day, 45 people were killed, and during my last visit to Sadad, I had to look into the eyes of a father who lost his wife, his 2 children, his uncle, and his mother-in-law, together with 2 other members of his family. They were all killed and thrown into a well. How can we speak of peace with this heartbroken father? Today, more than 4 million Syrians are living on the handouts from the International Food Program and other humanitarian organizations in a country that was self-sufficient and debt-free for many decades. Distinguished audience, the 2 archbishops have already been mentioned. It's now more than 500 days since the abduction of More Gregorius, Youhanna, Ibrahim, and Archbishop Boulos Yaziji of Aleppo. And we are still to learn about their whereabouts and their conditions. These are 2 men of God who were on their way back from a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped clergy members when they were abducted. Isn't the international community ashamed of its silence about the abduction of these 2 prominent figures and the other innocent people? When is the world going to listen and learn? Here in Belgium, we are commemorating the centennial of the First World War. Shortly after the start of that war, genocide was committed against Christians in the former Ottoman Empire. Together with some 1.5 million Armenians, more than 500,000 of our Syriac-speaking people were killed. These were targeted simply because they were Christians. And that reminds us that man can be monstrous and act in an outrageous way. We in the Syriac Orthodox Church of Antwerp are planning a year-long commemoration of the Syriac genocide, Seifo, in order to remind ourselves and others that the world should be united against terrorism and against the spread of hatred and extremism which threatens the basic rights of people. God created the world in order to exist in peace and harmony. Human beings ought to be the agents of such peace. Sustainable peace is not merely the absence of war and violence. It's rather the result of a healthy relationship with our Creator. It is then reflected in our relationship with each other and with the world, with nature in which we live. Therefore, building a culture of peace should be a common goal for all of us in order to prepare a better future for generations to come. In so doing, we need to draw on lessons learned from our past experiences. World wars, genocides, and religious and ethnic cleansings are shameful stains in the history of our human race. It is our and every generation's responsibility, therefore, to promote true peace. Brothers and sisters, the explosive situation in the Middle East, including the recent violence in Gaza, is heartbreaking. Yet hope for peace and optimism that a bright day is near still exists in the hearts of people. And we take this opportunity to call upon all people of goodwill to work together towards promoting such peace in the world, mindful of the importance of religion in the public life. We believe that our role as religious leaders in spreading a culture of understanding, accepting of one another, is paramount. Hence, the efforts of the community of Sant'Egidio are greatly appreciated. Organizing events and conferences such as this one, which promotes the spirit of tolerance and peaceful coexistence, will surely bear fruits for our broken humanity. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Holiness. And once again, thank you for being among us. It's really a great honor for us to have you in our midst these days. Now we are glad to listen